money is a bridge to freedom. If you're watching this and you want to access freedom, you're not alone. I wanted the same thing, but there is no shortcut. There is a path that you can take, a specific path you can follow, and I'm going to give you very clear steps to make this freedom a reality because I walked this path myself. I didn't grow up rich by any means. I wasn't given the entire world. I have great parents. They took care of me. I never lacked anything per se, but I definitely didn't have a surplus. I didn't have things just handed to me. Things weren't just given to me, and I had to work for everything. I had to follow a very specific path for me to gain freedom. And I'm going to do something here. Before I just talk about making money, I'm going to share with you a screen recording. I'm going to turn on my phone right here and record my screen and show you the money that I make. I'm going to go into my Stripe and I'm going to show you part of the money that I make because I have multiple different accounts, but I'll show you the money that I've made. You can see here, this is my phone. There's my calendar. And I'll pop open Stripe right here. Okay, yeah, it had this set up here. So you can see from 2016, I wasn't making anything really in 2016, but from around 2017 is when I started properly using Stripe, to 2024, you can see I made $260,000 paid to my Stripe account. And then in another account, which is our Kajabi account, where another processor we use, you could see there was 180. And in over 2020, you could see nothing came in because we weren't really using it again there. But we kicked things off towards the end of 2020. And you could see from 2020 to 2024, 180,000. And on top of that, there are payments that I have in PayPal that have come in because I used to use PayPal as a payment processor. So I've brought in about 200,000 over PayPal, and then bank transfers and other payment methods, Chase Direct transfers. I was having people pay me on freaking, what is this app they use in America? I don't use it anymore, but what is it called? It's Venmo. I used to have people pay me on Venmo. So I had payments come in all across the board. So I've done like close to $1 million in income across different channels, but you can see here, this is my Stripe, it's straight, and I like showing you guys proof. So the reason I wanted to show you that is to show you that I'm walking the walk. I'm not just talking this. Like, I've done multiple six figures over the last several years. I've had a very interesting journey of business development, an interesting journey where I've gone from not having much to being this broke kid who was just out in the street hustling as a nightclub promoter, to being a guy who was bringing in consistently hundreds of thousands of dollars for himself before the age of 30. So what I'm going to do is share with you, this is going to be a longer video, but I'm going to share with you something that really hit me in my mid 20s and a path that I created for myself that you can use for yourself and this path is that anything that I wanted to have, I couldn't have it without money. And there's a really good quote from Zig Ziglar. Money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale, right? It's interesting. You have to have money in order to have freedom, pretty much. Again, unless we're talking from a spiritual context, and I'm sure there's other people who would argue with me and say you can have freedom spiritually, be at peace. That's just not the game I've played in life. I've played the game of income. I've played that game of freedom. And I'm going to give you the path that I took. And this video is not going to be short. There's 9 steps that I have here that I took on this path. And I'm going to share with you my entire journey to finding freedom, to making more money. Number 1 was obsession. The first thing that I did to access money was obsession. And by obsession, I don't mean obsession over money. I was never obsessed with money. I was always obsessed with a specific skill set, and that obsession fuels me to this day. The obsession changed. Sometimes I was obsessed over learning dating and learning how to attract women, which I turned into a skill set that I could monetize. Other times I was obsessed with learning coaching. That's the skill set. I learned dating skills, and then I started coaching men and how to meet women. So I became obsessed with that. I became obsessed with nightlife, not even drinking and stuff, but just going out and networking, meeting people in New York, building a network and bringing girls to parties, things like that. Then my obsession, which is my obsession now, is sales and business development, learning things and being obsessed with a skill, being obsessed with mastery, being obsessed with being the absolute best that I could be at a certain skill. And everyone that I know who builds freedom, and I have many, many great friends who are building freedom. My clients, the guys that I train in sales right now, they're building freedom. They have a certain level of obsession. You have to be obsessed. And my obsession came in the form of me dropping out of university. That was one. And it wasn't for me. Honestly, I was obsessed with making content about dating and going out and trying to pick up girls. And I'm not saying that was the best thing to be obsessed with, but it was a skill that separated me from a lot of my peers because I became very good at approaching women, scheduling dates, eventually taking girls home, all those kind of things, some stuff that I think isn't so healthy now, but that's a skill that I built at a very basic level. I started with that skill. That was the first skill I heavily invested in and became so good at it that I could then, which is step number 2, create value around that skill. So I became intimately familiar early on with the idea of being obsessed. And this was a pattern through my life. And something that's interesting that I've seen is a lot of the people who struggle to find success, they struggle because they're not obsessed with something. And there's many things you can be obsessed with, by the way. You can be obsessed just with the idea of making money. Like, that's one. For me, I was never obsessed with making money. If I was, I'd probably have a whole lot more money. But I'm not. For me, making the money has never driven me. It's never been like, I need to make money. I've always been obsessed with mastery over certain skills. I'm someone who loves and values mastery, who values winning, who values being the best that I can be in a certain skill set. And that's what's always guided me forward. After I became obsessed with learning dating, after I became obsessed with this skill set, the second level was value creation. And this is a very specific path that you can follow. I'm going to tell you exactly how you can create this path yourself as well. The second thing I did was value creation. So value creation means I started helping other men with their confidence and their dating skills. So instead of it just being me doing this for myself, because I had learned a skill that separated me from a lot of my peers. So instead of me just doing this myself, I found a problem that was in the market. There were men who were working hard. They were successful guys. They wanted to connect with women, but they couldn't because they had anxiety or they lacked confidence, or they could talk to women, but just women weren't interested in them. And then there was a desired outcome. The desired outcome was to go out on dates. I want to go on dates. I want to find a great girl. I want to have a great relationship, things like that. And then I created a solution. Which was me going out with these men in clubs and bars, or sometimes even on the street during the day. I'd walk around with them in Manhattan, go to Soho, go to the great areas of Manhattan, and we would go out and approach women together. And because I had this skill set down, I was able to talk to women. I was able to get numbers. I was charismatic, and I had invested a lot in this skill set, by the way. I had mentors. I had been out approaching hundreds to thousands of women over the 2 to 3 years of learning this skill. And I really got involved in this skill set around 19. I started taking it seriously. 20, I got better. 21, I was going out and connecting with women, right? And then starting to teach men how to do this as well, because I was simply better than all of them at doing it. And then what I did, which was interesting, is I started charging less than my competitors. So there were other companies in this dating space that I was in that would teach the same things I was teaching, but they would charge more for it. And they were pretty premium. For them to work with you, you would have to charge like $2,000 or pay $2,000 to $4,000. And at the time, that was a lot. Nowadays, training like that is $4,000, $5,000. But back then, this is around 2016, 2017, people would charge $2,000 to $3,000 for 4 days. You go out with them on a weekend, you approach a bunch of women. I was charging less. I would charge $500 to $1,000. That's what I was charging, because I was just a kid who wanted some money to pay his rent and eat food. So I would charge less than my competitors, and it gave me, it wouldn't say freedom, but it gave me the ability to have my apartment, to be okay financially as much as I needed as a young man at that age. And I started getting paid for it. Then the third step, what happened, I kind of transformed after this. I started charging a little more for my coaching, for my training. But the next thing I did was I created an asset. And this is step number 3, building an asset. And this is what ultimately gave me freedom and led to me kind of blowing the finances out of the water and taking it to the next level. And you could even see in the screen recording I showed you of my Stripe, when I went through the finances I had, you can see how I was literally, if you look back, there's a spike in 2018 because I started making more money because I launched a course. So what I did is I created a course, and that course gave me freedom to travel and make videos. And I didn't have full freedom, to be honest. This was not like me having full, complete freedom and autonomy over myself. I didn't have full freedom to do what I wanted to do. But this was the first taste of freedom, having a course, because it was very interesting. I was selling this course for $297, $397. And at the time I had a YouTube channel. It was a bit small. I had I think 2,000, 3,000 subscribers, something like that. And this is back in 2018. And I launched this course. And what was interesting was seeing sales come in. Someone would pay me $400. They pay me $400. Why? Because I had created a course breaking down everything I knew about dating. And I would show videos of me approaching women. I would have videos of me texting girls, videos of me going on dates, videos of me talking about mindset and confidence and all these things. And I sold this course, and all I had to do was make a YouTube video, and 4 or 5 people would buy it. That's how crazy was that? Like, as a 22-year-old, seeing that online, seeing a course that I had made online, and I just put a link under my YouTube videos at the time, and a bunch of people purchase it just from me talking about it and doing that consistently, offering discounts here and there, which was really awesome. Then the fourth step, which helped me build this even further, was audience. I started going very aggressively on YouTube. I built a following online, and I started providing even more and more value. So in the span of like, let's say 2 years, give or take 2017, I launched the course, then to like 2019, my channel went from 4K to 9K. It doubled in size because I started going so aggressively on the content. I was uploading some of the best dating content in this space for men, and I built a following, and I started making my first 6 figures. That's when I really hit 6 figures. I started having months where I was making 15K, 20K per month. Not every month, of course, but I went over 100K for the first time, and it was really incredible. And looking back, by the way, there were things that I definitely could have done differently. As an example, I didn't run ads. So I did all this organically. Organically just means I used people from my YouTube channel. That's the only source of, audience that I had. I wasn't going out and posting ads and sharing and spending money on ads. It was just YouTube. So it was all organic, and I was still doing quite well. We were selling a bunch of memberships to this course, and people were buying, people were paying. And then my audience grew, and because I started making better YouTube content, because I started dialing in the way I was talking on YouTube, having more authority, speaking with more confidence, sharing better ideas, people started investing in that. People were interested in that. And what's interesting is, and I'll tell you this, having an audience is a massive, massive way to build freedom for yourself, because an audience is an asset in itself, right? One asset could be a course, but another asset could be having an audience. I know a lot of people, both friends of mine that I know who do this, and just people I follow online that I look up to in, certain mentorship programs that I've been a part of who are doing this, where they're not even making some kind of course, but they have a large audience. They've got, 100,000 followers, 500,000 followers, and then they have sponsorships, they have deals, they have affiliates, and they make good money. They're doing 10, 20K per month because of those deals, because of those affiliates, because of those sponsorships. You look at podcasts like Chris Williamson or Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson don't necessarily have a product, but there are people who sponsor the podcast because the following, the audience, the millions of followers, the millions of viewers, that in itself is an asset, right? You don't need it to always be, I have my product, I have my course, which that can help too, of course. If you don't have a big audience, let's say you have 5,000 people, you want to have a course, which is what I did, right? I didn't have 200,000 people following me. I just had 5,000, 6,000 people, but I had a course and I provided massive value in that course. So it allowed me to literally make money passively. I would travel, I'd go to Bali, and I would just promote my course, and I would just talk about my course while I was traveling. I would have videos with me meeting girls, and I would say, if you want to learn how to do this, I'm giving you a quick discount. Go get the course. Boom. Let's say 3-4 people buy the course and the price was $400. There we go. There's $1,600 from one video, and I make 4 or 5 of those per month. You see how the math adds up. So I started making 6 figures. Then the next thing that I did, which was really interesting, and this took me to the next level, was going high ticket and increasing my prices. So before that, I did have high ticket services. I would do some coaching in person, and I would charge maybe $1,000, $2,000 for that. And it was not bad, of course. It was okay. But I started to value my time more. And I started to increase the price point because the price for my time became higher because more people were following me. I became better at what I did. I was better as a coach. I was better as a leader. I started charging more for my training. And what this did was it increased my revenue, and it pushed me to some months where I was hitting 10, 15, even 20K per month and doing this consistently. So I had done that 1 or 2 times when I had the course. I launched it. It did really well. And then I had a couple of months where I ran a promotion, did really well. But the months were very inconsistent because I was inconsistent. But once I increased my prices, and I said, if you want to work with me personally, beyond just the course, if you want to work with me personally and get training with me directly, we're going to bump this up, and the price to work with me started becoming $3,000, $4,000 for in-person training with me. To spend 3 days work with me in person, I started charging $3,000 just for 3 days to work with me, something along those lines. And at the same time, even though I was making more money, what's really interesting, because we're about to go into a dark period, which I'll share with you in a second, things were really inconsistent because I didn't know how to run a business. So I was hustling, and my dad would always talk to me about this because my dad, super successful guy, I really look up to him a lot, and he's given me a lot of mentorship and guidance. He's just an incredible person. One of the things that he would always tell me is like, you need to shift from being a hustler to being someone who runs a business, where you're not just the guy who's hustling for cash, but who actually can run a business at a high level, because that's what's going to make you money. That's what's going to separate you from your competitors, right? things were very inconsistent for me because I didn't know how to run a business. So I was hustling. I was just making some cash one month and then it would dip down. And what happened was I had made a bunch of money. Like I had made good money. I had like 20K sitting in an account, just sitting because I had made good money and I didn't have so many expenses. But I went through a dark period after this time. I went through a very dark period. And there were three things that happened in this dark period. One was alcoholism. And I'll be really open about that and share like what that was like. And then I had anxiety and then frustration. Those are the three things. So I made a bunch of money. I started traveling. I came to Budapest, which is where I'm here in Budapest now, which is where I live. And I started traveling the world. I spent some time in Bali. I lived in Belgrade, Serbia for a while. I spent time in Germany. Like I just went to some pretty cool places. I was in Australia for some time, in Melbourne. Great people there. And one of the things that's interesting is even though I was bringing all this money, not all this, like not millions, but enough for myself to do well, 10, 15, 20K a month, depending on the month. I felt super empty inside and I was partying. I was getting blasted, drinking consistently every night. There was no real purpose behind any of it because honestly, I was fed up with dating and teaching dating. It's very mentally taxing teaching people how to meet women all the time, especially once you kind of don't care about meeting women anymore, if that makes sense. It's like you get excited about it when you're learning it. And I don't know if you could empathize with this or understand me, but I had gotten excited about it because I never had women. So I learned how to meet women and I mastered the skill and I was like, this is awesome. Then men started looking at me doing it and were like, dude, you're really great at this. Teach me how to do it. But then I stopped caring about doing it myself because I had a girl I was seeing. I was already doing really well with women. Like I was dating girls all over, had like some crazy, awesome dating experiences. I didn't really care anymore. It was like talking about this isn't fulfilling me. It doesn't feel exciting to me. And I experienced a lot of frustration. And a lot of anxiety with this. So I would go out and I would just binge drink. Like I had the money, but it wasn't enough money to give me complete total freedom for sure. Like that level of freedom where I was doing, 200K plus a year. And even then that's, there's another level beyond that, but I didn't have that kind of money. But at the same time, I felt just this constant anxiety of what's next. Why am I doing all of this? And this deep frustration. So what happened was the way I cleared this, and it was interesting. Two things happened. One, I went and actually spent time in Bali alone, just by myself. I spent time there just by myself, not engaging in the debauchery. I had some fun there, but I didn't take an extended period of time just engaging in debauchery for the sake of it. I stopped doing that. I stopped the drinking. I actually went very spiritual. The other thing is I found God, which was interesting too. I started taking my view of God and my view of spirituality much more seriously. And I believed there was something bigger than myself. So I started to operate with purpose. And me going through this ritual of looking at something bigger than myself where it wasn't just about me only. And I'll share more about this in another training in the future, another video here. I won't go too much into it now, but the more I spent time looking at something beyond me, something that wasn't just what can Tim get for himself, I began to feel better. I began to feel like there was something bigger I could do. I began to feel purpose. I began to feel alive, and the anxiety started to move away. The frustration started to move away. I stopped drinking completely, gave up alcohol. The seventh step after that was mentorship. And this was interesting. So I invested in a business development mentor. It was the most I ever invested in. I spent $20,000 working with a business coach, a mentor, I would even call him, beyond just coaching, who taught me the structures of being a consistent 10K a month business owner. Okay. And this means where I could do it consistently. I could do it repeatedly without the up and down cycles where it was like I'm making money, where I'm getting paid out, where people are paying me for my services. And this fundamentally changed my perspective. It fundamentally changed my perspective. So this mentor, I invested in him in 2020. We worked together all through the pandemic. And something that's interesting, a lesson that everyone can learn from here is investing in yourself. When you find the right person to invest in, it can be one of the best decisions in your life. Like if you find the right person to invest in, working with my mentor, his name is Caleb, working with Caleb fundamentally changed my life and changed my perception of the world. And the reason it changed my perception is because working with him allowed me to see it, allowed me to understand, and allowed me to realize how to execute on my potential consistently. Because before what would happen is I was winging it, right? Sometimes I would actively push hard in the business, then I would slow down. But I put no systems in place. I didn't put any strategies and structures in place that would allow me to consistently run this business at a 10K plus mark. But Caleb helped me see this, and working with him, spending that 20 grand made me significantly more than 20 grand. In fact, the year after I worked with him, I added in, I don't know the exact numbers, but I believe it was like 30% to my revenue, because I had taken a revenue dip during that time I was traveling and kind of fucking around. So I went from whatever it was, like maybe I made 80K, something like that, to bringing in like 120, right? I increased revenue by quite a lot. So it was worth it. And then I was able to repeat those processes. And I went 4 years kind of in and out of the dating space. I did some business coaching. I started training women also in dating, which was a terrible idea. I'll never do that again. But I took 4 years and just kind of went in and out of figuring out what I really wanted to do. And then I decided that teaching dating wasn't for me. And during this time that I started feeling this, I was with a business partner. The company went completely under, like sank. Me and him we split ways, didn't do well at all. And I had a couple of months, or I would say about a month, where I had some time to decide what do I want to do, because we had lost a bunch of money. There was a few clients I had that were paying me, but I had about just over a month of room before I really needed to dial in, or I'd be like financially in a very bad place. So what I decided to do is I decided to go in on the best skill set for myself that would give me the most freedom. And that skill set was closing. Fast forward to very recently, so I went into closing, and this is early 2023. I started learning how to close properly. And what's interesting is I had done high ticket sales before, because my business was high ticket. I had gotten to the point where the offer I was running and training people in across 2021, 2022, and the beginning or to middle of 2023 was an offer that was 6.5 to 10K. So I was selling high ticket for myself. It was my own business, but all the people that were buying from me knew me. So it was easier sales, because it was, they had seen my face. I was the business owner. I was talking to them directly. But what happened was I left this business and I said, how can I give myself the most freedom possible without immediately going back and building another business? So what I did was I found high ticket closing. And this was interesting. High ticket closing, essentially, if you don't know what it is, I'm sure you do if you're seeing this channel, but high ticket closing means putting yourself in the business for a business owner and handling their sales process. That's what it is. It's where when sales come in, or when prospects come in and they're interested in buying for a business owner, someone who's a high ticket business owner, you hop on a call with these interested people who are interested in buying the business owner services. And instead of the business owner talking to them, because he's busy, he doesn't have time to be on these calls every day, you handle those calls for the business owner and you bring sales over the line. That's what high ticket closing is at a basic level. Okay. And I invested in learning this. I invested in high level sales training. I spent 5K plus in just a month on sales training. And then I spent another 7K on another sales training program, and I kept investing in myself in terms of sales. I got a mentor as well. Some of the training was good. Some of it was not great, but eventually I figured out my own path. I religiously invested in training. I religiously invested in getting good, really, really, really good at sales. And I finally learned a model of sales and closing that worked for me, which allowed me to then make good money. And this is the next step, which was the final step, which was leverage and freedom. One of the things that I dialed in on sales in my own process was handling objections and leadership, becoming a leader. Because if you want freedom and you want to give yourself freedom, you want to give yourself the ability to create the life that you want, to create the freedom that you want, you need to become a leader. It's simple as that. You have to be a leader. And on sales calls are so interesting because they test you. They put you in a position where you have to be a leader or you're going to get obliterated. You're going to get destroyed by the prospect. It's not even that the prospect is going to be an asshole to you, but the prospect just won't respect you. The prospect won't feel that they have to follow what you're giving them and they have to, kind of take the path that you set for them. And if you want to establish that, which is needed for you to close deals at a high level, keep closing at 30%, which is very, very good. Bring in 10,000 plus for yourself or more per month. What you need to do is be a leader. You need to learn how to handle objections as well. When a prospect says, hey, I need to think about it, you need to handle objections. So what happened was I was able to build this skill set for myself to such a high level that the company that I worked for, and this was the second one I worked for, I had done closing before when I got into the situation of being a closer and I started being a closer. I worked for a company that was absolutely terrible, and I still made money with them, but I started working for a different company later that was just a great company to work with. They're great people. They invested in me even more to contribute to building their sales team. They invested in me. They started paying me a base, which means not just commissions, but they started even paying me a base just for being on the team, and helping them train their team in how to sell, because I had built the skill. Then I started making YouTube videos about my journey and training other closers to build a skill set the way that I have, and now that's what I do. That's where I'm at. I now close at a high level. I bring in deals for companies that I work with. I consult, which means that there's people that I have that are friends who are business owners, people I know in the business space, and I consult for them and help them build their sales process to help make sure that deals are coming over the line, people are not flaking, they're not losing money. And then I train. I have a bunch of guys that are in my program, QL Pro, Quantum Level Pro, great guys that are pushing hard and trying to get to months where they're bringing in 10, 15K per month or more and giving freedom to their families, giving them the lives that they want, giving themselves the lives that they want. That's what it is, and that's my whole journey. Everything shared here with you. So, where do we go from here? How do you build freedom? That's the question. Number one is learn a skill set. You have to be good at something. I recommend high ticket closing because I think that's the best place to start. And if you want to learn more about that, how it works, join the community we have down below. It's called Quantum Level, and it's a community with tons of trainings and literally an entire roadmap on how you can be a very, very good closer and make a good amount of money. That's the community we have below. Join it. You can't go wrong with that community. Trust me. The reviews speak for themselves. The other thing that I would say is after you learn a skill set, you need to gain leverage, which means that you need to place that skill set into an arena where you can test it out. All right. For me, when I learned dating as an example, I put it into an arena, which was coaching. I went out in New York to some of the toughest environments, and I went out with other men and I helped men build their confidence and talk to women. And me doing that gave me leverage. It means that me talking to women and being in these positions where I was guiding other men and how to communicate with women gave me leverage to tell the market in my YouTube videos and my content, hey, I'm really, really good at this. And I became very, very good at this. Same thing with sales. So what I did is I learned my sales skill set. I learned how to handle objections. Very, very good. Better than almost everyone I know. I'm very good at handling objections. I learned how to be a leader, at a high level where I wasn't sitting back and waiting for my prospects to tell me where they wanted to go, but I was leading them. And I used that to put myself in a better position with the company and the companies that I worked with to give me more money so they could invest more in me because they saw the value that I was bringing to the table, right? That's the game. So that's what you want to do. Learn your skill set, start learning sales, come on into the community and train with us. And then beyond just sales, learn how to put that skill set into the best position, which means work with a company that's really going to have faith in you. But you have to perform. You have to do good, because if you don't do good, you're just going to be on this bumpy road that really goes nowhere, right? You want to take the tough path, sure, that leads to freedom, the tough path, but that doesn't mean you want to have an up and down path where it's like you're sucking, then you're doing okay, then you're sucking, then you're doing okay. We don't want that. You want to be on a path of excellence, but the path of excellence is difficult, 100%, all right? So that's the game of 2024. That's all I'm leaving you with today. This was simple. This was clear, I hope. And you know more about me. You know my story. You know my journey. Hopefully there's some lessons in here that you can take. And I'll see you on the next one as we keep training, as we keep pushing. Other thing I'll say is I've been slacking off a bit on YouTube. The reason is because I've been training the guys in our sales training program so much and focusing really on building that in addition to the consulting I'm doing with other companies. So trying to find some balance and equilibrium right now in my life as I make content, as I share more here, but we're figuring it out. We're moving ahead. We're right under the 3K mark as of the shooting of this video. So hopefully we'll push past it quite soon. See you on the next one. Take care and keep pushing, keep growing. Freedom is right around the corner.